And those were the ones that once I dealt with them, that's when I actually saw so much progress in how I was feeling. When I used to get triggered, all of my symptoms used to amplify, but I didn't really understand it.
Today we're meeting Gordana, an ex-client of mine who healed after 7 years of fatigue using the mind-body connection. She's been on quite a journey and I'm excited to share her healing story with you. So welcome Gordana, great to see you.
Hi Rachel, great to see you as well.
So what was like before the illness?
I would say that my life was pretty normal. I would go to work Monday to Friday. I was very active. I was doing a lot of exercise, whether that be Pilates, yoga, boot camps. I was very active in my social scene, I guess. I would go out on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday with my friends. I would say that I was leading a very normal, very active lifestyle. It all started back around 2014. Started off with a small gluten sensitivity that now, looking back, knowing what I know, I can trace it back to mold exposure. So I had mold exposure, I didn't think anything of it, and I started becoming sensitive to gluten. Which wasn't really a big deal, but things started going downhill after that. And so by the time I contacted you back in 2023, March of 2023, I had been suffering for years with all sorts of health issues. The one thing that really stood out to me that was making my life super difficult was the intense fatigue that I felt 24/7, which meant that most of the time, if I wasn't at work, I was in bed resting, and I had to move back in with my parents as well. The other thing that really made things difficult was the fact that my digestive issues grew from something small like a gluten sensitivity to being sensitive to anything and everything. I was in constant pain and discomfort when I ate food. Then anxiety and depression came along. I was super sensitive to any amount of stress. It used to amplify all of my symptoms. I also had a lot of bloating in my body. In the morning, I'd wake up looking fine, but then by the time I would go to bed that day, my whole body, especially my legs, would be I'm not sure if twice the size is an exaggeration, but it certainly felt like it. I also had a lot of trouble concentrating, brain fog. So it was just a very difficult, uncomfortable life. I slowly but surely became a hermit because there was a lot of shame with what I was going through because no one could explain it. But also because I was having a lot of bloating in my body, and I also had skin issues on my face, it would go red, and especially on my cheeks. I was embarrassed and I was kind of disgusted with my body. I didn't want anyone to see me or my body. I just wanted to hide. And I guess it was actually really difficult, going to work looking like I was, not having much confidence, going to friends' engagement parties and being asked to be in a photo that you don't really want to be in, but you can't say no. Those are really hard emotional situations where I really wanted to hide, but the social protocol was that I had to appear and be happy and satisfy everyone by being in the photos and everything like that. So that was another element to the whole roller coaster that I was on. I lost confidence in myself physically and emotionally. I became I guess it became a shell of myself in many aspects.
So for the whole 7 years you were working, and as someone who worked for the first couple of years of my chronic fatigue journey, I know just how hard that is. And my heart really went out to you because you were dealing with some quite profound struggles.
Well, first of all, I was really sensitive to cold temperatures and perfumes and chemical smells. So I was being constantly tortured in the office because of the aircon. They're always very cold. And also people would wear perfumes, really strong perfumes around me. And that would just drive me crazy, physically and mentally. But then again, there was things on top of that as well because I felt like my illness is holding me back. I couldn't apply for a higher level job, even though I wanted to progress my career, because I felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't feeling 100%, and I didn't feel comfortable putting myself in a position where I may not be able to perform. And on top of that, I was really upset because I cared about my work and I wanted to give 100% of myself to it, but I couldn't because I wasn't feeling 100%. I wasn't even feeling 50. So there was an array of emotions that work brought for me.
Up until the point that we started applying a mind-body approach to your recovery, what had you been doing?
Initially, when it all started, I turned to doctors. So for the first couple of years, I was going from doctor left, right, and center, trying to figure out what was happening to me. But I wasn't getting very far with that. Every single doctor would do a blood test and they'd be like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you." And after a while, I gave up on that avenue, and I started, I guess, doing my own research. And luckily, um, after some time doing research and even going to a different country to see doctors, I actually came
Wow.
across medical medium who, I guess, gave me a lot of hope. A lot of the symptoms when I started doing medical medium protocol, it it helped me a lot. It alleviated a lot of my symptoms. In fact, some of my symptoms went away. For example, I had a lot of skin issues on my face, and when I started following the medical medium protocol, some of those things disappeared. But after a while, I sort of hit a plateau. And in fact, after a while, things actually started getting worse for me. For example, at the very beginning, I was eating salads, fresh, raw, no cooking. But by the time I met you, my body couldn't handle anything raw. I couldn't even eat salads because I was my digestion was so sensitive for some reason or another. So I actually started going downhill. I was actually feeling weaker, more sensitive to things. I guess after when I first initially came across it, I was full of hope. But then after a while, after years of doing it and not seeing any progress, actually you see progress going downhill. You feel a little bit lost, but at the same time you have no other option, so you keep going. You keep sort of going down the road, down that path, even though it's not working, but you have no other option because you don't know what else to do.
And I think that happens to many people. We get these things that we follow and they feel like the sort of last chance saloon. But that's because often we're doing it in isolation and we're not looking at the whole of ourselves.
You don't know what you don't know, I guess.
Exactly. It's the sort of thing that many of us experience, and healing, as I've always said, is a learning experience. It's an education and it's an opportunity to grow. So what made you decide? What was that pivotal point where you thought, okay, I've done this, I want to keep doing it, but I also know that I need to do something else?
For a couple of years prior to me finding out about you, my brother kept telling me about this whole mind-body connection. And I was very closed off to it. I didn't want to have a bar of it. I was convinced that, eating my boiled potatoes and my baked pumpkins and things like that and celery juice, I thought that was my ticket out. I guess after years of not going anywhere, um, I I just gave it a shot to watch one of your videos that my brother sent to me, and it resonated so much with me because it was, I wouldn't say it was 100% my story, but it was certainly 75%. And I thought to myself, my God, this woman has gone through a very similar journey to me. She tried medical medium and it worked for her, but it didn't get her to 100%. But she found the missing key. So it just gave me so much hope. And I think it helped the fact that I saw myself in you, Rachel, all your story, especially your symptoms and everything like that. It just made me sure that um, I found the missing puzzle, I guess.
And that is the point. It is a puzzle. It's not a very complicated puzzle, but stress comes at us from many different angles. And what we found together was that you were addressing some of the stress, but there were other stresses, not toxins, not, food, but actually other stresses from your experiences in the world, childhood, many other angles that were actually the thing that were holding you back. You decided to do the work on your emotions and really focus on the mind part of recovery. What was it like?
It was a little bit daunting at the very beginning, but then after I had because I didn't know what to expect. But then after I had the first session with you, I would say the very next day, I felt a difference, and I already felt like I had tools to help me with my daily life, to reduce my stress, to reduce my symptoms, and so on. So from the very first beginning, because I got that taste of how powerful this tapping tool is that I did with you, it was such a uplifting, full of hope kind of experience, especially because you were so understanding. You got me from the very beginning. I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to convince you of my story. You believed me, you understood me. So it was just such a pleasant experience. And I learned so much. And the funny thing was that working with you, I changed nothing about my diet. The only thing I changed was what was going on here and my emotions, which I guess was the biggest lesson that I've learned since starting work.
We've sort of touched on the fact that your life was quite stressful. You had a low tolerance to stress. And what surprised you? What did you discover that you didn't think was actually contributing to your health issues?
First of all, I had no idea that my childhood and the events that happened in my childhood would have any significance for what was happening currently in my life. But those were the first things that I started working on when I started this journey with you. Those were the key moments that I worked on. And those were the ones that once I dealt with them, that's when I actually saw so much progress in how I was feeling. I started feeling less fatigued. I started feeling less fatigued. My symptoms were reducing, and I wasn't feeling as much in discomfort and pain for example, when I had my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's funny how working on those traumas in my childhood, they were the ones that lifted the load off my back and my physical symptoms reduced.
And it is interesting because we actually started, I seem to remember, with what was going on for you today. Some of the issues that you were experiencing, are there any that you might like to share?
So I was sensitive to cold air, so I couldn't handle the aircon. I was sensitive to perfumes and all sorts of other chemical smells, like, for example, petrol. I couldn't go to a petrol station to fill up my car. I would have to get my parents to do it because I was really sensitive to that smell, and it would just give me a massive headache and just a very nauseous feeling. But all of those symptoms gradually all reduced as I progressed in my journey on working on tapping, but also doing the coaching sessions with you. So all of those things reduced, and also things used to trigger me a lot on an emotional level. But when I started working with you and I was getting a handle of the tapping tool and all the other things that I did, like the healing program, I became more resilient. Mum used to say things to me that historically used to upset me, but then she started saying them again, and I was like, okay. It had a profound impact on me, on a physical level, but also on an emotional level.
And isn't it interesting because those things used to trigger you? And how did you find your symptoms responded to those triggers?
When I used to get triggered, all of my symptoms used to amplify. When you don't know, you don't know. But I didn't really understand it. I was like, why are my symptoms amplifying all of a sudden? And then that would cause a downward spiral because then I would get a lot of fear. Oh, what if I'm getting worse? What if I'm getting a new symptom? Why is a symptom that disappeared? Why is it coming back again? So it was just a vicious cycle of questioning of what was actually happening in my body.
When we get a trigger and the symptom shows up, that can cause us a lot of fear, which then increases the symptom. And so, as you say, there were a lot of different things, lots of cycles that you got stuck in. And so by working on those triggers and reducing that stress response to the triggers, we're able to provide the body with the space to recover. Interesting thing that you said, Gordana, was how you would become afraid of the symptoms. And that's actually, that was a big part of your journey. I seem to remember us spending a bit of time working on how you actually felt about the symptoms, because we can spend a lot of time trying to get rid of the symptoms and trying to distance ourselves from them. Often how we feel about the symptoms can be the thing that keeps people stuck.
When I used to experience these symptoms, or for example, the thought of having food that I know would cause me digestive issues, my body would tense up. And that in itself would amplify the pain and the aches that I was feeling, the digestive discomfort that I was feeling. So it was that resistance to it, that fear of not wanting to experience it, that was actually driving the whole thing.
One of the things that people often do, and I did it, I was the queen of it, is just life just shuts down. There's no other life. So everything became about recovery. Everything becomes about recovery.
I was 100% focused on that. Nothing else existed. I essentially became a hermit, and I was 100% focused on my health, and nothing else mattered. I lost a lot of friendships. I lost a lot of connections. But I thought I was doing the right thing by disconnecting and just preoccupying myself with my illness.
And so, yes, it's one of those very gentle things that happens. And before you know it, you look around and you're on an island by yourself.
That's right.
And I know medical medium calls that mattress island. And I think that's such a great explanation for it. So during the process, what types of things did you have to address from a mind-body perspective?
Well, the first thing that as I mentioned, I did work on a lot of childhood traumas, which I didn't really realize they existed until I started looking. The other thing that stands out was I had a lot of fear of my symptoms. They used to drive me crazy on an emotional level, not only on a physical level, but also emotionally. So I gained a lot of, tools to be able to deal with not only the emotional side of the symptoms, but also the physical side. So I worked on those things, and there was a lot of fear as a result of these symptoms. Fear that not only did I feel in my chest on an emotional level, but fear that used to debilitate me and make my body feel really, really sick. That was something really important that I worked on. The other thing that I also worked on was was on the trauma of the actual illness. being sick for such a long period of time, without realizing it, you develop certain feelings like shame, fear, uh, maybe lack of hope. All of those emotions I dealt with you, and it's when I dealt with those emotions about my illness and how I felt about it. Things, like an onion, things started coming off my shoulders, which in turn helped me physically.
And that's a good point. And the other thing that you did, I seem to remember, is we worked in a group as well in my group program, and that we specifically dealt with, I guess, the trauma of illness or the experience of illness, where the fears, the emotions.
It was actually really beneficial to do that group because, sometimes you can't even identify those feelings. You don't even know what to call them until someone points it out on a screen and calls it shame or fear or something like that. So honestly, I learned so much from that program. It was incredible. And the other thing that stands out to me that we worked on was when I was doing the coaching sessions with you. And by that stage, I had already sort of gotten on top of all of my physical symptoms. And during that period, I started working with you, not really focusing actually on the identity of you. When I started working on my internal self, my identity, who I am, being honest and true to myself, and working out who I really am, that for some reason really gave me the courage, the bravery, really expand my horizons. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was actually creating some direction in my life. I wasn't feeling so aimless. I was actually building a stronger person. And that in turn, that really, like you said, when I started working on that identity of who I am and feeling stronger as a person, that really helped my recovery go from, 70% all the way to like 90 plus. It was a very quick kind of progression, which took me by surprise.
It was only a matter of weeks as well.
It really was. It was incredible what a mental shift, or how the mental shift that I experienced with you, how that shifted everything physically in my body. And that was just mine. Like I said, I didn't change anything. I was still doing the medical medium that as I was doing before I met you. But it just created such a massive shift for me.
Right, so we've heard a lot about the shifts and the things that you've dealt with. Based on where you were before, going from that and really feeling like every day was a struggle, where are you now?
I'm in a very, very good place. I'm feeling very happy. I am actually feeling joy, which I wasn't feeling when I was feeling sick. I remember days where I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm feeling so joyless. And I don't know why that word kept coming up, but I really was feeling joyless. I feel like I'm actually living my life. I am really enjoying work. I'm actually smiling when I go to work and when I come back, even though I'm actually really busy. I'm actually not really busy, Rachel. Believe me, I've got so many things up in the air. So I'm in the process of applying for a higher role at my workplace. And I actually feel like I can actually do it.
Which is amazing.
Yes, because before stress used to debilitate me. There's no way I could have done this before. But now, yes, there is stress in my life. But that's because I'm actually going out of my way to do things to progress in my life. And I'm handling it. Yes, there is stress, but it doesn't really cause me any issues. It's just like a normal person, I guess. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm actually in the process of trying to build a house. So that, I think, a year ago would have killed me. But now, yes, there's stress, but such is life, and I'm actually handling it and surviving it, and I'm actually thriving. There are a lot of things happening that are bringing me joy. I'm going out with my dog to the park. I'm going out and enjoying myself on the weekend. I actually feel like for the first time in a long time, in many years, I'm actually in control of my narrative and I'm choosing where to go.
What have you learnt from the whole process of having the illness and coming through and recovering your health? Because it is a learning process.
I'm still in awe of the fact that my emotions play such a big role in my physical health. I know it, but it sometimes still surprises me. I think that may be the biggest thing that I've learned, how powerful my mind is. And I mean, looking back, I think it was my mind, my emotions, my nerves, maybe, that actually debilitated me for those 7, 8, 9 weeks, however long it was. So I guess that was the biggest lesson, the fact that it's 90% up here and then maybe 10% on the plate. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. And that is the focus. That's what my focus is on now. Whenever I'm feeling a little bit of discomfort in my body, for example, I don't think, oh, what did I eat? I think, what happened yesterday or last night on an emotional level that upset me? And that's what I work on.
And so how does that serve you?
I guess it just makes my life easier. Just makes handling stress, dealing with stressful situations, dealing with uncertainty in life, just makes things easier for me. Makes you, I think the awareness that the emotions are so powerful and can have such an impact on your body, you're 80% there as soon as you get the awareness. Instead of suffering for 5 days with some sort of a physical issue, you know that you have to deal with those emotions to resolve the situation in half a day, if that. So it's a really good tool to actually deal with stress.
And that speeds things up significantly, because if the way that you're seeing symptoms now is very different to how you saw symptoms in the first place. So symptoms for you is a message.
Before it was like, oh, what did I eat? What did I smell? Was I too cold? Those were my focuses when my symptoms would amplify or an old symptom would return. That was my focus. But now the focus is, what has happened last night that upset me? Is there some sort of a stress that I'm not even aware of that's stressing me out and subconsciously? Those are my focuses on the emotional level rather than, oh, I smelled that perfume last night, it must be that.
What would you tell someone who is where you started right now? What advice would you give them?
If they were at the stage where I was just before meeting you, I would encourage them to really evaluate their situation and question whether what they're doing, i.e., focusing on food, and whether it's actually helping you. Because I firmly believe that food was the way to go. That was what was going to heal me. But only when I started working with you did I realize that it was actually all to do with my emotions and my mind. There were a lot of Instagram pages where I was following that was talking about this whole mind-body connection, but I tended to ignore those posts because they meant nothing to me. I didn't have a belief system about it. I had a belief system about food, that it was going to help me. So my focus was on that. But it's interesting because the moment I shifted my focus on my mind and on my body, that's when the real shift happened. I encourage anyone out there, focus on that mind and body connection and explore it. Yeah, focus on your food as well. Make sure you're having a good diet so that you're not in pain and discomfort. But I would really encourage exploration of the mind and body. That's where I think that's where the missing puzzle is. At least, yeah, it was for me. Don't lose hope, because 7 years of suffering and then 1 year of working with Rachel has completely changed my life. And I have proof that it has changed my life. So I know healing is absolutely possible. And you don't need expensive supplements. You don't need expensive juices every single day. all you need is to actually work on your emotions and on your mind. That was the only thing that I worked on for the last year with Rachel. And that was the thing that completely changed everything. EFT is really, really simple tool. You don't really need anyone to start off to see whether you respond to it. So just try it on your own at home. It doesn't cost you, it doesn't require energy. You don't have to think too hard. You could literally just sit there on your bed, in your bed or on your couch, and you can just tap without even using any words. Just tap along on the points. And that's when I first did, Rachel, when I first saw your YouTube video about, how do you start with tapping? That's all I did, 15 minutes on the couch, just tapping along, not even saying anything. See how you feel. Do that for a week and see how your body responds. That's your first step. And then you go from there.
So thank you so much, Gordana, for coming to talk to us. And if anyone's got any questions for either of us, post them in the comments and we'll see if we can answer anything that you'd like to know.
It's very hard to fit in 7 years or the last year into, half an hour of video. So I hope that I have done justice and people are able to, find it useful and helpful in their journey.